So here's a look at the logo shadowbox project that I've been working on. So this is the front of it. Let's look at the back first. I went to Michael's and I picked up a shadowbox and modified it a little bit. Um, and so we got a power switch on the back and the power hopping in. And if we take a look inside, I ripped off a bunch of the padding from the back of the shadow box so that I can mount the power on the inside, the power and the power switch. I did it this way because this power plug is tall enough that it would have propped the shadow box off the wall if I left it in place. Those cables jump into a circuit board that I designed for this project and for a couple other projects. But it's basically it's a super simple board that just gives us a mount for the Adafruit Trinket M0 that's running this project, power, the LED strip and stuff. There's an extra port on here that I put in for other projects that I'm not using on this one. And the Trinket drives essentially an LED strip. I took an LED strip and cut it apart and then rewired all of the LEDs back together. And they're mounted into this flat 3D printed mounting panel that's in the shape of the logo. Those are then attached to a wall like this. So the wall allows, the mount holds the LEDs directly in the center of each of the triangles, and then the wall masks off each of the individual LEDs from each other so that their light doesn't bleed across. So this wall sits in here, and that's what's giving the crisp lines to the edges of the triangle. So after designing this, and actually I designed this for a completely different, like a kind of like body type, and I ended up talking with some friends, and we talked about the shadow box idea, and this ended up being looking way cooler, so I kind of pivoted, which is why you see the hot glue holding the pieces together. Originally, there was an outer shell that held all the pieces together, so I didn't design these to be to really be attached on their own. But either way, after designing this part, I had to figure out, okay, well, how do I hold this center within the shadow box? So I went through and designed this mounting these two mounting panels, and I laser cut these over at Made. And those are designed to hold the logo directly into the center, and then the mounts are held in place by these four pillars on the in the corners. The pillars have slots for the plywood to hold in place. They're also spaced out enough that the logo doesn't shift in between, like it doesn't rock. It just holds perpendicular to the plywood, which is super helpful. There's also a little indent here that holds the acrylic in place. So whenever you push this all in, these pillars sit flush against the inner lip of the shadow box, and then the acrylic kind of sits into those lips and sits there. These are pretty snug. They're actually not glued in at the moment. Like if you shift them, this one will move just a little bit. So I'm probably gonna run like a bead of hot glue across these just so that they don't move at all. But really, that's it on the inside. Oh, other than this little bit of cardstock. Basically, I didn't turn off the dot star LED on the back of the trinket. And it's kind of nice to have it as a little status light if you're looking from the back. So I just cut some cardstock and put it over here so that the light from the dot star doesn't bleed through on the edge. So if we put it all back together, sorry. The last part about these pillars is that their size exactly for the inside edge of the shadow box. When I ripped this material off, it kind of stopped the back panel from sitting center in here. So these stops also kind of hold the back panel where it should be in place. So let me put a couple of these slots over and flip it. So, and then the idea is that the front should look like just flat black, like nothing. You can see the logo outline in here right now, but that's just because I have a whole bunch of lights pointed directly at the front. Whenever this is sitting up on the wall in regular lighting, you can't see the logo through it. And if I flip on the power, we get to obviously see the logo. So one of the things to note about this is that the lines are really crisp on the edge of the triangles, but there's this overlap effect happening on some of the pieces, and that's because with this wall, like if the edges of the wall mask off the LEDs so that the light can only go up and it doesn't bleed over between. And if you press this like directly against the top of the acrylic, you will get cleanly separated triangles that are the width of these walls here, because the light just goes straight into the acrylic. The way I get this overlap is that the walls are offset from the acrylic by just a bit, like by just a millimeter or so, and that allows the light to get masked off, and distributed across the entire center of the triangle. But then right before it hits the acrylic, there's a little bit of gap so that they can bleed over. So you get both the diffusing of the light so that you have these like fully formed triangles, but then you get that little bit of a bleed, which I think looks super cool. But yeah, so that's it. Now this can be mounted up, hang on a wall, and it's another project done.